You stay with the practice, I'll be guiding the practice. And then when it's time to open your eyes, I'll again ring the sound and again it'll carry through. So it's a good way to sort of come out of the practice. And you can open your eyes whenever you feel ready to open your eyes. So some of you might want to stay in for a little time, some of you might want to quickly get out, and that's all fine. Yeah? So we'll just do a silent practice for some time. So gently close your eyes. If you're on the chair, see that your feet are grounded. If you're sitting on a cushion, see that your legs are relaxed. All the sounds are not distractions, but they are part of our practice because they are all in the present. See that you're holding no tension in the forehead, between the eyebrows. Relax your shoulders. With a deep exhalation, just relax your back. Sometimes we can feel our hips lifted with some kind of holding. So just allow that to relax. Get heavy. And maybe setting an intention for these few hours to just be here. Of letting the problems, difficulties in life, plans, things you have to do, things you have to fix, just rest. Just for these few hours. And maybe fully enjoy As this space is available, free from everything to just be. Notice how silence feels within you. If there is thinking, you just let it be. But the focus is to get your awareness back to the present. What is the experience of being in the here and now? Trying to notice that experience. And now we will prepare ourselves to open our eyes at the sound of the bell, getting ready to reorient. And taking our time to open our eyes when we feel ready. Okay. So, for those of you who've just come, and I did not really introduce myself, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Sadia, and by profession, I'm a psychologist. I've been practicing for the last 18 years. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been teaching mindfulness workshops since 2013, and I have been practicing myself for the last 10 years. What really inspired me to actually even start talking about mindfulness, because it's not really a part of my study as a professional, is because when I was working with clients and with myself, I realized that although we know a lot of things and we know what's good for us and not good for us, and we know there are unhealthy emotions that kind of make us feel like they are unwholesome or they are not great feelings to have, they still are there. There are habit patterns that no matter how much we understand why they are there and from where they come in our childhood and what patterns, we are not really able to address them in a very wholesome way, even though we know everything intellectually. And so, apart from working with thoughts and patterns of thinking, so to say, and pushing to change habits, was there anything else that could be done? And while these questions were still going on in my head, I happened to end up at a meditation retreat in Dharamshala, just on a vacation. And something just kind of fit in. It was almost like something that was missing, just locked into the puzzle piece. And I said, hey, okay. The only thing I understood at that time was that the breath is a valid thing to pause at. I mean, you don't have to keep finding next things to do. Because at that time, I used to be, one of those people who would, if I went to, for a doctor's appointment and I had to wait, I would carry a book and I would carry my CD player, because that time we didn't have a smartphone. So you'd carry multiple things, and I would feel, if I'm waiting for long and if I get bored, all these things will help me. And one thing that made sense in that retreat was, okay, I can just breathe. That's also a valid way of sitting. You don't have to be doing something, and that was a less angsty way of waiting than this preempted anxiety that when you're there and you're bored and there is nothing to do, then what would you fill up your time with? So it started with that little thing actually, and then I attended a Vipassana, I attended another Vipassana, and then I attended some other retreats. I went to Australia, I studied more on neuroscience and mindfulness. I studied what was the link in the brain, because being a psychologist, of course, I was interested in how does it actually work, and why does it work, and why is this benefit that I'm feeling, why am I even feeling this benefit? And then it kind of really came together as a very solid approach in my head, in my own practice. And it started becoming a very integral part of my therapy, because then I could start seeing that when I was working with clients, yes, there were patterns, and I mean, we all go through stuff, right? We are kids, all of us are helpless children in a world of adults who don't know better. So we've all gone through stuff. And yes, these patterns condition us and they train us to be a certain way or deal with things a certain way. But there seems to be something very universal there, which is the nature of the mind itself, right? And that became a very interesting thing for me, that you need to work with something far more at the core. And that's how these workshops, so I started teaching individual clients, and then I said, hey, you're teaching the same thing again and again to everybody, so why don't you get all of these people together and do it like a workshop, and there is also enough time to at length explain it. So then we started with like a single 3-hour workshop, that was all. And then I realized there is more to be said, so we had a level 2 and level 3, and then we said, no, I think we need to have an 8-week systematic course. And then a lot more people came in apart from the clients, their families, their friends, and here we are with Mindful Springs. So it's been a very organic movement and process, personally for me also. So we'll go with a question, which is, in fact, there's a nice story I heard, and I feel that story really brings forth, or this analogy really brings forth what we are trying to do. So the analogy goes like this, okay? Once in a village, There's a stream flowing from upstream to downstream, and a man is struggling inside and drowning. And another man who's walking by the shore just sees, and he's a good swimmer, so he jumps in and he rescues this person. After some days in the same village, another man is flowing downstream, gasping, struggling. Okay. Again, another man who's a good swimmer sees this person, rescues. This starts to become common knowledge in the village that something is happening. People are like, we need to be doing something there. So what these guys do is that they set up a net across the river so that people can be rescued, and they set up a rehabilitation camp on the shore so that they can be rescued and they can be rehabilitated quickly so they don't suffer too much damage. And this goes on, and people, they do find people, often enough in the stream, and they keep rescuing them. Now the question is, what is a question that they are not asking? They're doing everything to rescue these people, but what is an important question that they are not asking? Why are these people subtle? Why are they even falling downstream, right? And it seems so simple, no? I mean, in a story like this, it seems so obvious. And yet, when you're bored or when you're lonely, how often do you really ask the question, why am I lonely? Not because I don't have friends, but why? What is the experience of this loneliness? What is this boredom really about? Very rarely, because the moment we feel bored or we feel lonely, we quickly start doing what? Figuring a way to distract, fix, call somebody, go out, watch TV, read a book, do anything, eat, binge, smoke a cigarette, whatever, right? Have a glass of wine, whatever. But how often do we actually sit and say, hey, what is this boredom? What is really going on here? What is the experience of this boredom? It's a really rare phenomena, right? And this is what mindfulness is. It is about truly, truly asking deeply of yourself, what is happening really now, right? And this awareness almost cannot come because of this habitual tendency to distract continuously from what is happening, right? We are all here because something is bothering us enough to be here. Nobody sacrifices Sunday mornings to come when there's nothing to figure out. There is something there. It's universal. It's not just people who are here. It's people who have not come also. The condition is amazingly universal because the conditioning is universal. The conditioning of not seeing what it is and quickly trying to fix it so that we don't have to feel this unpleasantness anymore. This conditioning of not feeling unpleasantness is extremely universal, and moving to pleasantness is extremely universal. It's almost survival conditioning, right? And yet, the people, the sages, the wise people, Buddha, they have all said that the only way you will truly find an answer to this, what he called dukkha, which actually doesn't mean sadness, it means a sense of a chronic dissatisfaction. A dissatisfaction that continues. Even if you're dissatisfied about one thing today, even if that gets resolved, there's the next thing that's going to come up, and then you will be dissatisfied about that. And there is no point of time in your life that you're truly free of being dissatisfied. He said that your answer is not in solving this one problem that you're all the time looking to fix, whether it's a relationship, whether it's an achievement goal, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a material need that you're finding, whether it's a child who's not doing well, anything, whether it's your body, weight that you're not losing, whether it's an illness, no matter what it is, even if that gets resolved, that's not going to be the end of your chronic dissatisfaction, because the conditioning is such that there's a stick and there's a carrot dangling at the end of the stick, and you're carrying that stick. So you will always be running and the carrot will always be ahead of you, The conditioning is such. So he said that the only way of working through this is by gazing unflinchingly at the heart of the pain, not by distracting from the pain, but actually by really, really looking at that pain. But that's really difficult for us. It's not an easy process because we are not conditioned to look at it that way. Right? We've never had even role models really. Some of us probably had some role models, but few of us have really had role models which would stop and really settle down when they are in pain and look at what is going on. Right? So mindfulness is not a tool to relax and fix and solve. It's all secondary. It's actually a method of really, really looking inside at what is going on. And that's only possible if there is an ability to be present, to be here. Not in the mental stories, but here. So another thing that happens is anything that comes up as an uneasiness, the mind starts to make stories about it, right? Ideas about who I am, ideas about who the other person who's causing trouble is, how I would like it to be resolved, and ruminates and thinks about that. Okay, if you think about it once, twice, okay, 10 times, okay, 20 times. Then also it's okay. But how many times do we end up thinking about something that we want to resolve? Over and over and over, hundreds of times. And at the cost of what? So when you're walking, when you're traveling, you're thinking about something else. At the cost of what? At the cost of that, at the cost of that time, at the cost of that present moment, right? Come on. So at the cost of that present moment, we are thinking about something else. And similarly, at the cost of so many present moments, we are thinking about something else. And moment after moment after moment, we lose life that is just now there, available to actually make us joyful and happy. So this is there, this is probably not heavily stimulating, but restful. This space is an opportunity for genuine, valid rest. But the choice we make repeatedly is a choice of, I'd rather be thinking about fixing something, solving something, think about something in the past that went well, think about something in the future that I need to solve, something that didn't go well in the past, whatever. So the mental story, the present moment is always getting sacrificed at the altar of the mental story. And the mental story is what continues the issue. Because the issue, when somebody, for example, says something which is hurtful, that's just happening in the 2 minutes. But sometimes people are holding, or 3 minutes, or okay, you've had a half an hour fight, but people are holding on to it sometimes for what, decades, lifetimes. So how does that continue? How does that suffering continue? It continues because the belief in one's own mental stories is so strong and so attached, right? It's my mental story. This person said this to me, and it is only prolonging your own suffering. It's not prolonging anybody else's suffering, right? And still we choose it. Very smart people, all of us, but we still choose it. Really. And it's surprising, when I really figured this out at some point of my practice, I was like, hey, this is so obvious. And why are we still making these choices? And we are conditioned to make these choices. And we'll learn more about why we are conditioned and all maybe in our future courses. But the idea is therefore that we understand this and we make a choice to be here. And we make a choice to relate to this present moment because the mental story really is not worth it. And it's only choosing to continue the inertia of telling us how everything is not good enough and how it's going to get better and how you're going to make it better or something else, and only if somebody else was this way or that way would things get better, right? But this is easier said than done. Much easier said than done. And we understand that. We are conditioned, so we understand that. So we have to start somewhere. And this is where what we are going to do today is where we start our work. This is a place of starting our work. Yeah? Any questions so far? Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. In fact, it is the question that comes up in the first session. And usually when we are doing an 8-week course, I have to tell people, if it does not get answered by the 8th week, we will revisit it. So, but this is the nature of things. The questions come up always in the beginning. The answers we get a bit slowly. But I will address it. And for now, I will address it in a more simplistic manner. Setting a goal is not a problem. And even planning for that goal is not a problem. But what all are you letting go, and how many times are you planning and replanning is the question.
There has been times where you are continuously in that phase where you are just, 24/7 thinking of something related to the goal.
Correct.
And the present moment is just sacrifice.
That's what I'm saying, exactly.
Yeah,
you plan it. You put a to-do list, you plan. You give yourself half an hour a day to plan. But then there is a disconnect possible, because what happens with that? See, when 24/7 you're thinking about that, you're also telling yourself that this moment, without the achievement of that goal, is dissatisfactory. Right? Because I'm all the time wanting to be there, and my mind therefore feels that state is satisfactory, then this state must be highly dissatisfactory. And then you're living every day in dissatisfaction until you reach that goal. But when you do reach that goal, how long are you able to enjoy it? Yes, not too long. Then you find the next thing. And then another phase of life until you reach that will be in dissatisfaction. You know?
I think that most people are trained to be, by the society, to be in that dissatisfied zone.
It is. Yeah, program. And see, the programming is for a good reason. I was actually not going to cover that reason, but since it's come up, let's talk about it. If you see evolutional theory, if you see evolutional psychology, you will see that the way it works is through the traits that get reinforced are through natural selection. Right? Natural selection is Darwin's understanding of what gets reinforced. Now, that natural selection means what? It means that whatever is useful for a species will get embedded, and whatever is not useful for a species will just go away. Now, take a scenario. Early in the history of humankind, there are two men. Both have hunted or gathered their food and now have had a full meal. Okay? Now, person one says, okay, I've had my meal, I'm going to chill, rest, take it easy. Person two says, okay, this meal is done, but what about my next meal? So I have to think about my next meal. Which of these two is more likely to survive? So natural selection believes chronic dissatisfaction will keep you alive. May not keep you happy, but that survival doesn't care. It cares that you are alive, that you procreate, and you transfer genes into the next generation. That is the history or the evolution of survival, right? Otherwise, the species will just die off, right? So, yes, for survival, to be alive, some amount of dissatisfaction seems to be important. But look where we've carried it. We have houses, shelters with grills, and food on our plate, and more than enough food on our plate, and technology, and everything, but we still, that survival instinct is not going from us. And the dissatisfaction knows no bounds. It's no longer about getting food and preventing yourself from wild animals and natural calamities. It's not about that anymore, right? So it's time to sort of rethink where to draw that line. It's not that we don't want to have any goals. It's not that we don't want to use any technology. We don't want to move forward. No. But is it helpful to spend these kinds of times in just thinking about something and then letting what is there here and now go, because we've in our minds labeled it as, yeah, like what is there to take a bath in awareness? Every day I take a bath. I'd rather think about my future plans while taking a bath. Why should I bother? Oh, what is there to eat in awareness? Yes, I work very hard to get good food on my plate, but what is there eating in awareness? It's just food. Better to think about the next thing to do, right? So the first morsel may be with some awareness. You don't know when the food is over. Maximizing the entertainment of the moment, so I will eat while I watch TV so that I can get like food and TV and stimulation. So many complicated ways of thinking that we've got used to. So actually mindfulness is just simplifying stuff and paying attention to what is there, and that it's genuinely enjoyable for what it is also, once you learn to pay attention in a specific way. That's the idea. Does that answer your question? Okay. So the idea then is that what is really going on in the mind. So I want to talk about, there was a study done by Norman Farb and his colleagues. These are neuroscientists. And they said that the brain, the nervous system, has two different neural networks through which it engages with the world. Okay? And these are known as the default network and the direct network. Okay? Now, your entire nervous system has a specific set of nerves, let's say for now. Neural networks is a definite set of nerves that engages with the world through a network known as default. Now this network is also known as the narrative network. Narrative as in storytelling network. Now this is actually takes you away from its experience. So when someone walks in the room, there is some perception, but then there's a story about this person that actually takes away from seeing and experiencing that person. So you move into default network. Another example is, let's say you go to the beach and say, I will enjoy the sunset today. How much time you actually enjoy the sunset? Before your mind starts to move into, what a beautiful sunset. The last time I saw a sunset, it was in Goa. And I was with so-and-so friend, and oh, what a lovely time we had. Oh, but that friend I don't meet so often now, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then the sunset is gone. We are in some sunset of our own, but this is not the sunset we are in anymore, right? So that's the default network. That's a natural network that tells stories. Now that's a helpful network too, because when these stories are there, we are able to interpret what happened in the past because of these stories. And because of these ideas that we have, we are able to predict what can happen in the future. And again, it keeps us alive and surviving and makes sense of the world around us. And so we need it. So there's no problem with this network, except that it's overly used. It's used so much that it is used at the expense of the direct network. Now, what is the direct network? The direct network is activated when you are doing what you're doing, like when you're threading a needle and you're fully there, when you're doing a very difficult job at work, really sitting and analyzing, and you're fully there, then your direct network is activated. So, but the only thing is we use the default a lot more and we use the direct a lot less. And we use the default at the cost of the direct, because both of these networks are mutually exclusive. They almost cannot, not almost, they just cannot coexist. So once you've moved into default, direct is gone. Okay? What we do in mindfulness as a practice is, we practice staying with the direct network. So when we do a practice now, right, an exercise now, we will notice thinking coming up, and that will be the default network. And we will bring our awareness back to the present moment, and that will be staying with the direct network. And in this practice that we do just now, we will notice what all aspects of the present moment can we actually pay attention to. So it's known as open awareness practice, which is we open our awareness and we allow whatever is happening in the present to be connected with us. Yeah? So ready for another practice?
Can I ask
Yes, yes.
I think as someone who suffers from hypervigilance, this direct default thing is important to me because I kind of feel like things have to go to them constantly.
Yeah.
So I guess like for someone who's coming to mindfulness to kind of deal with hypervigilance, like what commentary would you offer on that?
Yeah. Actually, we have to understand why a hypervigilance occurs, right? I don't know, you must have read about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. You must have read about it, right? Yeah. So what happens is, in our nervous system, there are two aspects. Let's say, there is a lot of division, but I'm going to put it simplistically, which at least handles our arousal and relaxation. There are two parts of the nervous system that handle arousal and relaxation, right? The sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is your fight and flight response. It handles when your body is aroused. So it's very much needed because when we are struggling with any kind of threat, we need this nervous system. But this nervous system technically needs to function in alternance with the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. So fight and flight followed by rest and digest. Fight and flight followed by rest and digest. This is how it works. So when a lion runs after a deer, it has to get into arousal sympathetic mode. But once the chase is over, and if it is alive, then it has to get back into the rest and digest. And you will see the deer's behavior. It takes a while and then it starts to graze and eat again. But as human beings, we have this faculty of thinking, analytical thought, which keeps us stuck in the fear and carries the sympathetic arousal ahead and does not let the parasympathetic response come. So what mindfulness does is, because you keep your mind in the present, and the present is not threatening, and because you again and again and again align with the present, which is not threatening, you slowly change the mental habit of being in the story. And when that habit of being in the story changes, then the sympathetic arousal is not needed anymore. So the hypervigilance can come down. That's what would happen. I'm hoping too. We are all hoping, right? And that's partly why we actually designed the 8 weeks course also, because 8 weeks of doing this work every day is what actually creates these changes in the brain. And I'll talk more about it eventually. Yeah? So we will get into a practice. Yeah? So just stretch and do whatever you want. You are in charge. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. You can switch it off for some time if you want, whatever. Whatever. Sure. Once you learn how to operate it, tell us also. We need to learn also. Okay. Okay. So we get back into position and ground our feet. A good way to sit is very relaxed in the legs and alert in the spine. Because meditation is not fully relaxation, but it's not fully alertness either. It's a very relaxed awareness. So both the energies of alertness and relaxation can get balanced. Okay. So again, starting with noticing if there is any area in the body that's being held tight habitually, any tension in the forehead, in the eyes, in the jaw. And with a deep out breath, allowing that to relax. And starting with bringing your awareness to your body. Noticing the contact with the ground. Contact of your legs with the cushion or the ground, depending on how you are sitting. Contact of the seat with the chair or with the ground. Noticing the space your body occupies. Where are the boundaries of your body? Just bringing awareness to that. Where do you notice the in-breath and the out-breath in the body? Which parts of the body are most aware of in-breath and out-breath? Can you feel it at the nostrils, or in the chest, or in the belly? Just noticing that. If any thinking comes up, it's just a habit pattern of the mind. So make no judgments about it. But whenever you recognize, just let it go. And come back to focusing on whatever you were focusing on. And now moving the awareness from the body to the sounds. What are the sounds we can hear that are really close to us? Just paying attention to those. Noticing when the mind wavers, when the attention goes here and there, and just very gently, very calmly getting it back to noticing sounds. What about sounds that are at a distance? Do they also come into awareness? And maybe now you can move your awareness to the sense of warmth or coolness that you feel right now, to the temperature. Where in the body do you feel warm or cool? And just gently resting the attention there, not making interpretations, not analyzing, but just gently resting your attention at whatever feels warm or cool. Even if restlessness comes up, noticing that. And now bringing the awareness to the breath. Breathing in, knowing you're breathing in. Breathing out, knowing you're breathing out. Just the knowledge of breath. Simply knowing breathing. Not trying to breathe in a particular way. Not changing anything. Just noticing. Now getting ready to end the practice at the sound of the bell and opening your eyes whenever you feel ready. Okay. So how did it go for you?
I'm starting to feel my age. Like I find that my joints start to really hurt, which I wasn't quite expecting. The last time I was doing mindfulness regularly, I was a little younger. So, any tips for that?
Now, just pain also is something that comes up as a mental resistance sometimes, and it can get better just continuing the sitting. But if floor sitting is difficult, then you can sit on a chair. That's possible. That's okay. That's fine. It's actually, has tea come? Tea has come. Okay. So we'll take a break for tea, but we'll just go through a round of what was the experience of this practice. Of course, of course, of course. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Yes. And in the next section, after the tea break, we will address what actually we need to do when something like this comes up in meditation. So we'll address that. What else? Thoughts? Too many thoughts. It's an experience. You know at least that, when you're in silence, then you actually realize how noisy the inside is. Sometimes there's so much noise outside, you never even realize how much noise is inside. You get that sense. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, that's the idea. That's the idea, that the potential for joy that is there underneath the dissatisfaction that is caused by thinking, when that layer starts thinning, it doesn't disappear, but starts thinning, the analogy is that the sky is always there, but then there are clouds that don't let you see the sky. But when the clouds thin, you can get a peek of the sky. But the true nature is one of vastness and spaciousness and joyousness, which is within already. So it's not even something to learn, it is something to kind of see through like this. That's the work. Yeah. What else? What about your experiences? Difficult, easy? Yeah, yeah. The habitual body tendencies. Yeah, yeah.
It's really nice when you can start feeling that there is another state of being aware of what is happening around you, and just understanding what your body is doing, which you ideally, when you're just doing your normal chores, you would never ever think about it. It makes you more relaxed.
Yeah. Such a relief, no? It's almost a relief that this is a possibility, isn't it? Yeah.
New state which you can just...
Yeah, yeah. What about the difficulties? Of course, thoughts. What else? Pain, thoughts. What else?
State of the awareness is one very short span.
Short, very
But
short.
again, going back to the state of the default actually.
Yeah, just.
Focus or the concentration was for a very
It's a very short while that it stays. Right, right, right. Right. So these are all absolutely natural responses to the practice, yeah? And we are not trying to fix this also, because then we can get into the self-improvement fixing mode. That's another trap. If we can't fix things outside, we start fixing ourselves. So that's another trap, yeah? And that we want to be very careful about, yeah? So we are not trying to fix, we are trying to notice, to know better, and this is the beginning of that recognition and that awareness that this exists, that the mind moves in and out of this, that sometimes it's very difficult to stop, and come back. But everything is recognition, which is better than not even knowing. So that's at least a beginning, right? And that's a good time to break for chai also and re-energize and come back, right? So we'll take a short break. Maybe we can get the chai in and the snacks yeah? So there are 5 pillars. I like to call them 5 pillars on which let's say mindfulness or awareness can rest. Or 5 points we want to be aware about while we are practicing. These 5 pillars are like, it's like a table standing on 5 legs. So each pillar is equally important for the table of mindfulness to be stable and stay. Now, what are these pillars, right? The first one is wise attention. If you read on the website, there is a free ebook that I've written. It's called The First Few Steps to Mindfulness, for some of you who've read it. These pillars are explained in great detail. I'm just going to skim through. When we are trying to is attention. We are not trying to stop thoughts. We are not trying to shut down pain. It is answering what we tried to do. We are not trying to push anything. We are only noticing where is my attention. Because actually, in life, when pain comes up, it's not in your control. When thoughts come in, that's not in your control. Right? Memory comes up. Somebody says something, you feel hurt. A situation happens. What is actually in your control? Only what happens next is in your control. What happens is not in your control, ever. So, considering that this is the environment full of possibilities and happenings, and the field with which we can work is only here, and even in this field, body sensations come up out of control, thoughts come up out of control, even in this field, the only one thing we seem to be able to work with is it's like a flashlight of attention. So it's like a small flashlight, a torch. Where do you want to put it? In which part of the brain? So do I want to pay attention to my pain? Or do I want to pay attention to my breath? Or do I want to pay attention to my thoughts? Or do I want to pay attention to the sounds? That is the work. Not so much shutting it down, right? And there'll be more pillars which will explain even better how to do it when things come up for us. But for now, it's important to understand that all we are trying to work with is attention. So when this attention goes off because of conditioning and habit and gets entangled in thoughts, it is something so there is thinking and there is entanglement in thinking. These are 2 different things. We look at it as one thing, just thinking. There is thinking and there is attention absorbed in the thinking. We don't want to do anything about the thinking. But we can get the attention out of the thinking and pay attention to what we are trying to pay attention to. And whatever that may be. Bathing or eating or working or right now breath or whatever. So it is this that we are working with, not with the thinking. We are just letting the thinking be. Because there's nothing we can do about it. It's just coming. And it's coming and going and coming and going, right? So we are not doing nothing about that. So the first pillar is wise attention. The second pillar is present moment focus. Right? So, what are we working with? Attention. Where is the attention put? In the present moment. So, anything that is in the present is valid to be paying attention to. Sounds, action, lying, standing, sitting, walking, breath, body sensations, visuals, everything is mindfulness. So awareness is available 24/7 in anything that you do. It is not a practice of sitting on a cushion. It is actually not a practice of sitting on a cushion. You sit on the cushion to realize what happens with the mind so you can work with it a little more with little more orientation, and then you can generalize it to the rest of your life. But if you don't generalize it to life, then actually this is not a helpful thing to do, because then you just become patient on the cushion and then you go out there. It's like in the boot camp, you're doing very well, in the battlefield, you're not doing anything. It's like that. So you're actually using this and the learnings from this to go out there and work with it, right? So present moment focus. So anything in the present is valid. What happens, Sakshi? हाँ, ठीक है. The third thing is, now we worked with present moment focus. But what is the quality of this focus? What is the quality of this attention? Okay, so we pay attention in the present moment, but what if I'm paying attention, there's a very disturbing sound. Okay, my neighbor is yelling, okay, let's say. My neighbor is yelling, and I'm trying to sleep. And my mindfulness has made me only more aware of the yelling, because now I can't even escape in thoughts. Okay, so I have no escape now. So now my life is, with these two, it can become seriously miserable also, right? What do? I'm like, oh, can't she keep quiet? No. Okay. Let me. Then what are we practicing? We are practicing non-judgmental awareness. What is non-judgmental awareness? What do you think is non-judgmental awareness?
That it's out of your control. This is what is.
Absolutely.
Not good, not bad.
Yes.
Maybe that's probably
Sure. And so, the first work actually is to be non-judgmental to your judgment. That's the first thing to do. First thing is, when an unpleasant sound hits you, and then you say, hey, I have to be non-judgmental to it, then you go in knots. Because you're like, how to be non-judgmental is so unpleasant, right? So first judgment comes up, and then you are non-judgmental to the judgment. And then, when you're non-judgmental to the judgment, you soften out. And then you can be non-judgmental to the actual stimulus. So you're practicing it very, very organically, and not by pushing and pulling, by being very soft. See, if the path or the destination of this path is to be joy and peace, the path cannot be aggressive and violent. So pushing ourselves, shutting ourselves down, trying not to pay attention, being upset, this struggle is not the path. The path is of managing to be peaceful with what is. Not everything in life is going to be present. And constantly striving for the achievement of something pleasant is what creates the dissatisfaction. Right? So first we'll have to be non-judgmental to our own, in our practice, to our own thinking, to our own pain. Pain is there, that's okay. Thinking is happening, that's okay. My mind went off, that's okay. Oh, I lost control, I don't know where I was for 3-4 minutes, that's okay. The moment you choose to return back is the moment of your work. And all you have to do is keep trying to do that. Keep making that attempt. And that's definitely something we can all do. That's why when people say, I cannot meditate, it's not true. Everybody can meditate. But everybody cannot focus. But everybody can meditate, because focusing on non-focus is also meditation. Recognize lack of focus is also meditation. Coming back is also meditation. Right? So the beauty is, there is no one way of doing it. It's an openness to whatever presents itself, within and outside. So it's a practice of actually opening up, not a practice of doing something in a particular way. That's not the idea at all. Right? So you do it with non-judgment. You do it with equanimity. Which also means non-reactivity. What is equanimity? What do you think non-reactivity in this space can be about? Yeah. So not getting reactive and agitated. So when you come with non-judgment, you also develop the capacity of letting it be. And as the spaciousness in the system grows, you can physically feel less reactive to things beautifully. And then you yourself feel, oh, this situation would have upset me so much, but now it is not upsetting me so much. This situation could have really derailed me, but it's not derailing me anymore. And it's not like you worked with the situation, you simply worked with presence and awareness. So it's beautiful how this converts itself to life, right? And finally, and I feel I cannot emphasize this point enough, is with compassion. The fifth pillar. What does compassion mean? Empathy, okay. With others, empathy, okay. What else? Come on, compassion. To feel for others, yes. Any other definitions? Kindness, gentleness. First, towards yourself. First. All this do good to others, feel for others cannot happen when you truly do not feel okay for yourself. And in fact, we hold ourselves so egoistically and so strongly that we don't forgive ourselves mistakes. Sometimes we don't forgive other people's mistakes when it happens against us. But otherwise, you do mediocre work, that's okay. I can't do mediocre work. I am better. That I am better is also a big punishment to oneself when you actually end up making a mistake. When you end up doing less than you think you should have done, right? So even in meditation practice, I can't focus, I should focus better, this is not good enough, I'm not doing this well enough. See, all these are mental stories. Compassion is actually true embracing and acceptance of the present, even what we are in this present moment. Letting go of all the mental stories and making peace with what it is now. So, and it's a beautiful practice in meditation to practice compassion, because there'll be a good day, you'll feel very peaceful. And there'll be a very bad day meditating and you'll feel very agitated and restless. And in 2 minutes, you'll be like, okay, focus. Deep breaths, and then mind has gone somewhere. So this is how meditation practice can also be. And then there are days feel, oh, this is lovely, I feel so peaceful, I feel so relaxed. So if we start attaching, and again that's equanimity, if we start attaching to good practice and start feeling negatively about the bad days, then the compassion is going out of the picture. The compassion for things as they are is leaving. And only when you can truly be compassionate to yourself, and as you go through a longer practice like this 8-week or whatever, you will notice that so many difficulties come up with compassion, right? And so many times you get to recognize how harsh you are to yourself, how judgmental to others, but how very judgmental towards yourself also. And how many ideas of this is how it should be, this is not how it should be, this is right, this is wrong, this is okay, and how that actually ends up causing so much pain and uneasiness in the system, right? So the practice of compassion, and this applies to thoughts and pain and everything. So now you see that when pain comes up with the joints, in meditation or wherever, we can pay attention to the pain also. That's also in the present. So it doesn't mean that you pay attention to only your breath. If your pain is too pulling, for some time you go to the pain. And you watch it with as much non-judgment, compassion, non-reactivity as possible. As much acceptance. Not like it's a hindrance to my practice. More like, this is my practice today. To watch it gently. And when it allows you to let go, then you come back to your breath. So it's a very harmonious, integrated way of dealing with what's coming up, rather than a compartmentalized, segregated way of, not this because right now I'm meditating. No, not this sound because right now I'm meditating. That's a part of my meditation. Maybe I need to listen to the sound. If it's so pulling, then I just Just pay attention. In fact, a very interesting thing happened recently, and I'll tell you about it in coming up with this. So I was in Bhopal just before New Year's teaching a workshop for Tata Power. And I was prepared to teach a full day workshop in English to the employees as usual. But people came with their spouses, which I was happy, and their kids. So when I walked into the hall in the morning, there were kids from 3 years to 13 years old running around the hall, okay, and screaming and shouting, playing catch and cook, crying, opening chip packets. And I was like, what were these guys thinking? Ab kya kare? Matlab, what do you do now? So I asked the person in charge, I said, these kids are here, like, I'm sure you have a plan for them, like to send them somewhere so we can meditate, right? And he said, yes, we will sort these kids out. And that never happened. And especially the 3-4-year-olds would just not leave. The others we somehow managed to push into the garden, the catch and cook ones. And 2-3 13-year-olds sat and said, I will also fill the forms and I will also participate in the workshop for like 15 minutes. And then, of course, they were off the first meditation and they were like, Jane do, this is not our scene. But the fun was, when we closed our eyes to meditate, we had Mama, Akolo, crying, Mummy, biscuit chahiye, all these sounds. And our first meditation, the fathers were like, see, the mothers were better because they were a little used to mama the whole day. So they were like, okay, you can keep crying and I will still meditate. But the fathers were so disturbed and they were like, what is going on? And all of that. And then we said, okay, this is the present moment for us. This is what it is today. And I had to realign too, to be honest, because initially I also panicked. I said, how will I teach meditation with all these kids crying around? It doesn't work. They will never feel silence. And then I said, no, maybe this session is about non-judgmental awareness. It's not about silence at all. So let's let the kid cry. Let's get kids on our laps and meditate. Let's practice non-judgmental awareness. And the session went beautifully because we actually got so much alignment because we said, okay, this is the present. And this is what we are teaching, isn't it? Non-judgmental awareness, equanimity, compassion. Great opportunity to practice it. So we practiced it for a whole day. And then the kids became my close friends and said, chalo, khana khate hain saath mein and blah, blah. And then in the breaks, they would sit around me and meditate to the bell for like 10 counts. Like 10 counts maximum. So but it was a wonderful time that we had, and I actually felt so good after the workshop. I enjoyed it so much. I thought it was such a wholesome experience, even for me. So sometimes the situation seems so unsettling, but actually can become what is needed for that time, for that moment. So this is it. Therefore, so these children could be your pain. These children could be your thoughts. The thoughts also can be like children. The pain also can be like children. Everything that comes up, emotions, everything comes up can be dealt with like we deal with children. It's exactly like that. Very gently, very lovingly. But we did meditate. We closed our eyes and for 15-20 minutes at a time, to the sound of all these things, we did meditate. Right? And I mean, we actually came to a point where by the end of the day, the children were like, Mummy, bell baj gayi, aankh band karo. We came there, almost came there. So, yeah, so that's the way to practice, okay? So any questions before we get into a practice? Yes?
Does non-reactivity, could that also lead to non-confronting? So, for example, you're sort of okay with not reacting in situations you just don't want to react. You don't also not want to confront it in this sort of state.
Yeah.
Does that lead to that?
Not if you understand it correctly, because the question is non-reactivity about passivity and non-confrontation? The idea of non-reactivity is to respond, not react. It's to not respond. So when you create space between what happened and your response, you can choose a more wholesome response, which sometimes actually may mean if your pattern is non-confrontational, then your reactivity is non-confrontational, you understand? For example, sometimes your pattern is to shut down in the face of conflict. Then that's your reactive pattern. Reactive doesn't only mean an overt reactivity, it can even be a covert reactivity. It's still a reaction. But if you have space to watch what happened, what's the shutdown, then you might be able to actually choose to confront if that's what is needed and to not pick the battle if that's what is needed. You just realize whether you want to pick your battle or no. That's it. So, non-reactivity is absolutely not about passivity. In fact, you will find a whole lot of meditation teachers, they're so energetic. They're not passive. They're not just sitting and doing nothing. They are going all out there. They're teaching. There's a good amount of energy. There's a good amount of, be out there and do it. But it's not coming from a very egoistic push of I should or I should not. It's more coming out of a joy of whatever I can. So there's freedom in that action rather than any fetters or any confinement in that action. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Any other questions? Life? Why is that? Give me an... Yeah. Yes. Yes. Why is a stand a reaction and not a response? No, if it's a correct thing, you should absolutely do it, but that may still be a response. What I'm trying to just say is, it's not about not standing up for yourself. It is simply about doing it because you have had the space to decide that it needs to be done. That's all. It's just about doing what is right for you. See, the problem with these words are, we have an idea about what they mean, but that's not what they mean. Non-reactivity doesn't mean sit no matter how much things bother you. That's not the idea. The idea is recognition, this is bothering me. Okay? Taking it forward, also a deeper, for example, when you work through a longer time, you can even notice in your body how it is bothering you. You can notice in your physical sensations. You can recognize the emotions. You can recognize the thoughts. Because where is it bothering you? It's bothering you here. When somebody says something against you, it's bothering you where? Here, not there. Right? You understand what I'm saying? The problem or the impact of the problem is here, not there. So before fixing that, I first have to see what's going on here. Then I come out of here and decide what I need to do with that. Fix, take a stand, not take a stand, take a decision. Maybe I need to take a stand and maybe I need to take a stand every time. But can I do that with understanding, being compassionate to myself, to that person? Because if my mind is caught up and I recognize it, I also recognize the other person's mind is caught up. First thing is, one thing you learn with meditation is, I know all this and still I am not able to control the way I think about things or the way I do things. How is this person going to be any better? So you recognize that that person's mind is caught up also. Automatically some amount of compassion comes in the picture, only when you practice, not because I'm telling you. In 8 weeks, in the 8-week course, we will be going through all these pillars in greater depth, because just now we are just understanding what they are about, but how actually to practice them in our lives. What is at the root of all of this? Like for example, equanimity only gets addressed in the 6th session. Fully, because you need all of those previous sessions to understand how reactivity is not just about a mental phenomena and what we are talking about, but actually a deep-rooted physiological phenomena. You can notice reactivity in your body coming up way before it comes up into your conscious awareness. So when you start working with that field, which is so much more out of your awareness, subconscious, and therefore shut down, a whole lot of emotional stuff can come up. A whole lot of thinking can come up. Then you have to work to the next peak to work with that emotional. So there is piece after piece after piece after piece, which one needs to systematically work through. So the 8 weeks would, like there's an entire session on compassion, but that's like 8th session or 7th session. So we come to all these pillars again, but with a deeper understanding of the body, of the nervous system, of what has happened in the week, what came up when we worked with something in the body, now what we can do as a next piece. So in that sense, it's a thought through process that we've created so that it can help to work through. So the hope is that one is able to work through certain challenges one is going through at the moment, and also open up emotionally to who one really is, and live less in the storytelling life and more in the real life, because emotions are in the present. Body is in the present. Reactivity in the body is in the present. Only stories are about the past and future. They are not letting you fully experience the experience of this moment. So the idea is in various multiple ways to kind of come back to the present moment. So that is the orientation of the 8 week. And the reason for 8 weeks is because neuroscientifically it has been proven that 8 weeks of mindfulness actually can create a change in both the structure and function of the brain. So it's actually seen to create a physical change in the structure of the way the brain is made also in a helpful way. Also, habit formation studies show about 66 days is what it takes to form any habit. So what happens with this kind of a session is we understand, we know, we go back, we try to get in. But then inertia takes over. So 8 weeks of with homework, with practices, with guided meditations, audio meditations, lot of things given. The idea is you keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. Then 8 weeks later it becomes a part of the way you function. So multiple ways it's helpful in terms of habit formation, in terms of step-by-step work and all of it. So that's what's going to happen. It's starting on the 25th of January, which is a Friday, and 7th of January, which is a Sunday. So we have 2 simultaneous 8-week courses on Friday evenings and Sunday mornings. Sunday morning is 10 to 1, 10 to 1, 10:30 to 10:30 to 1. Friday evening is 7 to 9:30. And each week we will be working with one piece and giving some homework videos to watch, some guided meditation to do, which is appropriate to what we have learned in that week. And so the course is this time being offered at a discount if you participate in a study. So what we have done is, we've done this course many times. Now we want to, and we've seen immense benefit. Now we want to know the benefit and put it down into a study format. So we are studying participants before the course and after. So what is required to be a participant in the study is a promise to attend 8 weeks, every session, and to give 1.5 hours in the beginning, and about an hour in the beginning and an hour in the end. So before we start, like 8-week participants would come 1 hour early. The study participants would come 1 hour early and before for the first session, and then complete a questionnaire. That's all, a paper pencil questionnaire, measuring compassion, joy, various things. And at the end of the study, we'll again have a questionnaire measuring that. And 2 months after the study, we will have a questionnaire again measuring the lasting impacts, whether it's lasting or it changes. And that's helpful for us also to get feedback in terms of what else we need to do differently, or maybe we're doing it correctly or whatever. So if you participate in a study as a thank you for that effort, there's a discount of 30%. So usually the course I think is at 11,500 including taxes. This would be 8,000 including taxes if you participate in the study. But yes, you have to come every week, otherwise it's null and void.